Välkomna tillbaka till The Conference. Nu är vi här igen på Slakthuset med ännu en spännande gäst. Det ska vi förstås göra hela det här inslaget också på engelska eftersom det är hennes modersmål. So welcome back everybody. We're at the conference in Malmö again. My name is Andreas Ekström. I'm a reporter at Sydsvenskan. And with me on the stage this afternoon I have Sabrina Majeed from BuzzFeed. A warm hand, please. Now, Sabrina has already given a talk here at the conference, and we're going to try to do it a really almost tweet-long I realize this is impossible for you to do that, but we're going to ask you to just make it really, really nice and tight and see if we can get a Reader's Digest version. So what were you talking about this afternoon in your presentation?
Yeah, so I guess I was talking a lot about data and the fact that people see data as this cold, calculating, unemotional thing, but there are actually very emotional applications of data, such as using it for activism, using it for user experience, and using it for authenticity in journalism.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
And let's go into some of the examples right away. How are you guys working with this?
Yeah, I guess like one of the major examples is how we use data to internationalize our content, because that's a way of reaching new audiences. But it's also a way of making sure it's not just like an echo chamber at BuzzFeed. Like, we're trying to highlight diverse people, diverse perspectives, and we have data that helps back that up by showing us who's reading our content.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And how do you do this technically? What are some of the tools that you're using to do this?
To like measure stuff?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not a data scientist, so I'm not sure of like what the actual like platforms that they're using. I mean, obviously we have Google Analytics, and
of course, yeah.
I think we're using Twitter. Just came out with a new platform that the name is escaping me. But
let's talk about the results that you derive from it and how you work with that. So when you get the results from the data scientist guys, how do you take the next step?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of it is just asking questions. So like I might ask for something from the data scientists, and they'll probe me a lot for what I actually want to know. They're like, is this actually the statistic you want, or what are you actually trying to solve? And likewise, if I'm just given data, I'll probably ask for like other ways to parse it. So, for example, if we get a chart that's like, hey, like, we're sending out a lot of app invites, I might ask, okay, how is that converting to app downloads and signups from there? So always asking for more than what you're given, I think, is the first step.
Mm-hmm. That's a good journalistic principle as well.
Yeah.
So you have a background in app making, I know that.
Yeah.
And then you moved on to this more of journalistical. Can you tell us a little bit about your personal journey into that?
Yeah. Well, I'm still making apps. I just do it at a media company now, so I guess in that way it's changed. Like before, I was doing a lot of finance apps, it's definitely very different, media versus finance. But
this is more fun.
It is more fun, yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Right. And right now, all of the world is sort of looking to BuzzFeed for answers. Like, you guys seem to be doing something right. You seem to have understood something that a lot of us are struggling to understand. What do you think makes BuzzFeed work?
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, I think a lot of it is the emphasis on diverse perspectives. So like a lot of the posts that made BuzzFeed very successful early on were identity posts, right? They're like things that this person can identify with, like this very specific person. And obviously, like, we would just be regurgitating ourselves if we focused on the same type of person all the time. So it definitely started out by just trying to identify with different groups, and obviously trying to hire people who can speak authentically about those identities. It's like, it has to be authentic. But I think that's definitely how we've managed to reach a lot of people. Yeah.
What's your reader ratio when it comes to U.S. and then international?
So I actually just found out last week that it's just, at this point, just a little under 50% international, which is huge. Because 2 years ago, we were only in the U.S., so that contingent has grown, like, a lot. Yeah.
Do you have a microphone problem? Is it just me, or is it just me? So you're happy with this? Yeah, just no. You come back and let me know if you need something and you pass a mic to me.
Yeah.
International offices.
Oh, so we actually already have, yeah. Every edition, foreign edition that we have a foreign bureau. So there's Paris, London, I think Buenos Aires, there's one too. We just announced yesterday that we're launching in Japan, so there will be a Tokyo office. There's a Germany office. think Mexico and Canada too.
And language.
Yeah.
I mean, English is obviously your working language most places. But now, when you broaden that perspective, how are you going to be thinking about that? Are you still
Yeah.
going to be doing mostly English, or how are you going to balance?
Yeah, so I think actually when we first started internationalizing, we focused more on language than countries, and I actually think that was a mistake. So we did English and then we did Spanish. But the countries that speak Spanish are so diverse in and of themselves that the type of feed that we would produce for maybe Spain was not really relevant to Mexico, which is why we recently launched a Mexico edition. So I actually think that country was actually a better move for us than language. So we could get more specific and authentic.
And also, getting to know your readers is always something that a lot of people argue that's the key to success right now. We used to be in the content business, now you're in the relationship business, understanding and talking to everybody. Do you actually have a personal dialogue with? I mean, it's a big readership. Do people talk to you? Do you analyze them that way as well?
Yeah, we have a team of community managers that do a lot of community outreach. So when BuzzFeed first started, and this is actually still there, anyone can make a post. Like anyone here could just go to buzzfeed.com/post and write their own post. And if a community moderator liked that post, they would, promote it to the front page. So we've always had a community, but I think over time, as we've grown, the community has transitioned from content creators to content readers. And so the focus of our community team has shifted more to helping those readers, I think with moderation, making sure that people feel safe, and especially in comment sections, which can be really volatile, they do a lot to make sure no one's feeling harassed, like everyone is happy.
How's your talking climate when it comes to that?
You mean on the comments?
Yeah.
Definitely not as bad as other places on the internet.
And why is that? Because that's my impression too, but why is that?
Yeah, I mean, I think BuzzFeed is a very optimistic site. Like, we don't post cynical content that much, and I also think that the people who don't like us don't put the effort into commenting. So we don't see that where I work. Yeah.
Which is something we need to think about.
They're going to Reddit to do that.
Okay, that's good. That's good. You leave that to them. People keep on telling us that desktop is as dead as print. It's all going to be mobile. What are the statistics looking at for you guys? They're moving towards mobile, everything? Or?
Majority of mobile, like 70% mobile traffic, So definitely, I mean, I think, a few years ago, once it went over 50%, a lot of the focus has been there. And I think a lot of the challenges for us there is that all content is created on a desktop. Like, writers and editors work on desktops, not on phones yet. I mean, that's something the mobile team is really interested in, is publishing tools on mobile. But the challenge right now is the way people write something on desktop, it doesn't always translate to mobile. So it's one of our challenges. Yeah.
So BuzzFeed has grown really quickly, gone from 0 to 100 in a short time. Eventually, there's going to be challenges. I mean, eventually, you two are going to grow older and slower to adapt. What are some of the main challenges as let's give it a 5-year perspective for BuzzFeed to stay relevant?
Oh, gosh. Well, I think experimentation is very big internally. So obviously, even if quizzes are doing well, I think everyone knows that these things are trends and they don't last forever. And we're not going to put all our eggs in that basket of only doing the same thing over and over. We're constantly trying to evolve the platform, or the platforms that are doing well. So editors experiment a lot with what's possible with a quiz. So recently, editors started making quizzes into choose your own adventure games, where based on your quiz answers, it would generate a story for you. And because those took off, we actually made a custom choose your own adventure platform after that. So I think just constantly pushing the boundaries of what we can do with different content types is how we try to stay relevant.
Right.
Yeah.
You've also been talking some about personalized content. Can you elaborate a little on that?
Yeah, I think our recent news app was one of our big pushes there. So I think a lot of times when news organizations send push notifications, it's what the organization wants to communicate rather than what the person actually wants to hear about. So our whole app is based on the premise of subscriptions. So subscribing to not just topics, but individual stories if the story is big enough. The Malaysian airplane crash is obviously a big story with constant updates. And a lot of times when people want notifications, they want to be updated on a specific thing. So we allow people to basically subscribe to a story now. So we're kind of personalizing what they're getting.
And what sort of feedback do you see? Do people keep on using it, or is it just a novelty?
Yeah, I think so far we've seen our push notifications help with retention in the app. Because people come in because of that story, but then they stay and they read more. So, and it also just, encourages the behavior of coming back. So we've definitely seen it work out. And we've gotten a lot of positive feedback that the push notification itself is very valuable. Like, they don't even have to click into the story because they're just like, this is what I wanted to know. Yeah.
So I work at a newspaper that's been around for 165 years.
Yeah.
With that comes some good stuff and some bad stuff. One of the good things is that we tend to have a strong feeling of what we are. What are we there for? What are we there to do? Who are our readers? And what is our purpose? When you're really young, you can still reinvent that a lot. And I'm curious to hear from an insider as yourself.
Yeah.
How is that corporate culture developing? Like the feeling of this is BuzzFeedy and this is not.
Right.
How do you learn that?
Oh, gosh. I mean, I think, honestly, just reading the website is one of the ways that I learn it. Like, it gives me a good pulse on what the editorial team is working on. And we also try to meet with them very regularly. So they're all involved in a lot of our product meetings on the tech side, too. And I think, obviously, as every company grows, like, the culture starts to change and get a little more corporate. And I think by continuously sort of decentralizing, we've tried to avoid that. So we try to make small autonomous teams that can operate independently. So, like, for example, on the mobile team, we don't have the expectation of having feature parity with the desktop site. Like, we're not beholden to what they're doing, and they're not beholden to what we're doing. So we can operate on our own. Yeah.
Now, we're going to be open to take questions from anybody who's here. If you're interested in asking one, you may. There's a microphone over there. If not, you can, of course, also easily find Sabrina on Twitter and ask her questions that way. I'm sure she'll answer that way, too. Just make sure that you raise a big hand if you ask something. There's a gentleman up on the staircase. Yes, sir.
Bit controversial. What are your thoughts on the news that's happening at Reddit at the moment?
Let's just give a quick recap of that. There's been a large discussion on Reddit let's call it the abuse that we touched on before, and just the way people have been talking there. It ended up with one of the top management losing her job or leaving her job, depending on how you want to look at it.
Yeah.
So what are your reflections on that?
It's interesting because I care about that not because I work at BuzzFeed, but because I'm a woman on the internet, and like abuse and harassment definitely affects me. And it's one of the reasons I guess I've always personally been a little shy about being on Reddit or being active, because there's that community there. I know, but there's also really good things that come out of it. I don't know. That's all I got.
Yeah. You mentioned, though, you were affected. Are you? You're somewhat of a public figure speaking tech for BuzzFeed. What's your experience in that?
Well, I think on BuzzFeed, I think we self-select, like I mentioned before, so mostly positive people read our content. I actually recently posted content on BuzzFeed that was about women in tech, and I was actually very surprised that the response was mostly positive. There were a few haters, but I think overall, like, our community and the fact that we have community moderators who I think they tend to be a little more, I know what the word is, not strict, but more sensitive than perhaps Reddit is about flagging certain comments. So luckily that's shielded from the authors a lot of the times.
Strong moderation is
very strong,
the key. Yeah. So we're going to round up with the final question. A lot of people here are in all sorts of businesses, small startup, big corporations, media, all sorts. Taking your skills and knowledge from what you've learned, what you know at BuzzFeed, what is a good general advice on us how to learn from you?
Oh, gosh. I guess something that's been on my mind lately, because I actually just recently transitioned into a management role, and I'm realizing how important good managers are to making, like, the whole company function. I think that as companies scale really fast, sometimes, like, there's not a lot of attention actually put into preparing people and training them, and it's something we're starting to invest in a lot right now, is, like, management training and making sure, especially, like, unconscious bias training, things like that. I think it's super important to get that in as early as possible, so you're not undoing stuff once you're really big. Yeah.
Great advice.
Yeah.
Sabrina Majeed, everybody. Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you. Och vi återkommer förstås här imorgon med ytterligare serieintervjuer. Ni kan se oss här imorgon eftermiddag. Jag tror att den första sändningen sker strax efter 2:00. Håll utkik på sajten så ses vi igen. Tack ska ni ha.